Clock. Let's give a round of applause for everybody else who has talked tonight. It's not easy to stand up here and tell a story. You can start the clock now. My name is DC Lozano. I am half Mexican, full lesbian. Two things that I'm very proud of. I grew up very Catholic. When I was 8, I had my first communion. Who knows what that is? First communion is basically cannibalism, I think. The thing that was interesting about it, though, for me, was that I didn't know that this was going to happen, but my first communion, I had to wake up in the morning and a bunch of relatives came from all over to watch this momentous occasion, and I had to put on a dress. I hate dresses. I have always hated dresses. This dress was not just that dress. This dress was white and lacy, and it came with a veil. Now, the little boys that were also having their first communion, they got to wear little tuxedos. Isn't that sweet? I didn't get to wear that, and that's what I wanted to wear. So as we got to the church and we lined up by gender, which is so F, right? I realized at that moment that I was getting married, and I didn't want to get married. Here I was in my white wedding gown, lined up next to some dumbass little boy in his tuxedo, and I had to walk down the aisle. Now, if you are Catholic, or if you've ever been Catholic, you know that these ceremonies, church sessions, they take a long time. I am 8 years old, and I have to wait to get married. It doesn't happen immediately. So I sit in the pew, unhappy about this realization that I'm getting married. And my dad is one of the ushers, and he walks up when it's time for me to go and partake of the body of Christ and the blood of Christ. And Catholics believe that it actually is the body and blood of Christ. This is not a metaphor. This is a sacrament of cannibalism. I also pace a lot, so I'm not going to stand still. So my dad, as the usher, comes up and he puts his hand on the side of the pew, and that's when I'm supposed to stand up, right, to go and get married. And I remember when I stood up, I belched very, very loudly. The loudest noise that had ever come out of me in those 8 years. And I remember the look on my dad's face. He was like... And to me, that belch was a cry for help, but he did not hear it. He did not listen to it. Damn him. So I proceed up there with my new little husband, and the priest says, the body of Christ, and it was a lot to get out the required amen, but I did it, and then the blood of Christ. And I got out my amen, and that was more than I could take. I turned around and I found my mom in the congregation, and I looked at her, and I puked my guts out. Everywhere. Puke. Everywhere. And the next thing I remember is that these little women came rushing for me, and they picked me up and they carted me off. And at first I thought they were angels, that I was going to heaven, but it wasn't. And they put me in this side room, and I remember one of the little women pulled a hanky out of her purse and handed it to the other woman. And they took that hanky and they ran out to my puke and picked through the puke to pick out the body of Christ. Which made me puke more, as it would. It's a true story. My twin has always been mortified of me. I'm always pulling these sorts of shenanigans. Let's fast forward a few years. To the day I realized I didn't have to marry a man. It was the best day of my life. The 70s and 80s were problematic in so many ways. Gay people, there were no characters in books that I could relate to, right? The gay characters that I ever saw on television were in a TV show called Soap. Anybody? Billy Crystal played an effeminate dude who nobody called gay, but he was the joke, right? He was the punchline. So that was an important day for me. Gender roles have always been problematic for me. I defy them at every chance I can, and sometimes to my own demise, right? I don't like having to dress in the way that other people dress. I don't listen to dress codes. I hate them. So it limits me in the jobs that I apply for. But I'm super happy. I am. Once I'd sort of pieced together, so this invisibility that our culture created about gay people, it was hard. And once that invisibility, once that veil sort of dropped, veil, it was so freeing to understand and to finally get that there was a place for me in this world. When I was 23, I told my sister Diane, who is a state public defender for Wyoming, so she really loves drama. I told her that she needed to tell my parents that I was gay, because I didn't want to do it. And the reason I didn't want to do it wasn't because I didn't love my parents and didn't think that they wouldn't love me, but I was afraid of that initial reaction. I thought, what if their faces tell me something that I will remember forever? I don't want to know what that is, so I'm going to let somebody else do that. A few years later, my mom told her brother that I was gay, and we kept it secret because we're talking Wyoming and Nebraska in the 90s, right? And he said, well, that's cool, but she should keep it discreet. Now, if you know me or you follow me on Facebook, you know that I keep nothing discreet. So I wrote a 3-page letter and sent it to every living relative. The gist of that letter was, I'm gay, you're an asshole, get over it, don't pray for me, and I wear purple socks. Now, I read that letter recently, well, today, and I was like, why do I keep talking about purple socks? So if anybody out there can tell me what culturally was happening in 1995 about purple socks, get to me after this. I got a lot of responses about that coming out letter. Some of them were really good and some of them were really terrible. I saved one letter from my godmother, Maxine, who told me that she would never support me and that I was choosing to be discriminated against, while my Mexican relatives experienced true discrimination. And I remembered, and maybe that's why I saved the letter, because I think it hurt me in a lot of ways that I didn't realize. 23 years later, Maxine sent me a Facebook message that told me that I was a champion in our family and that I set our family on the right path with my courage and my braveness. Now, I'm not up here to tout me as any of those things or a hero, but it took me 23 years to be able to come out to the world and tell my story. And 23 years later, she was strong enough to also come out and support me. We all do our story in our own time, right? So when we meet, right? And that's why we tell our stories.